Hi, my name is Scott Yoon. I'm your instructor here for SAT reading and writing. Today we're going to go over specific rules so that you can ace your grammar section. Let's start with number 1. So in this text, let's read Botanical Garden in Norway and the Botanico in Brazil are two of many botanical gardens around the world dedicated to growing diverse plant species, both native and non-native, fostering scientific research, and educating the public about plant conservation. So you notice that here in the text we have a semicolon, which is not being used as a period, but we're using it as a super comma. Now what does that mean? We want to list complex items on the list, and we can indeed use a semicolon for this. When we're using a semicolon as a super comma for listing items, we must follow a parallel structure. As you can see in the last item, we see the ing form and educating. We see that for item number 2, we see fostering, and for item number 3, we see growing. So that they all follow this parallel structure, and the second and third item, what's in between, we have a semicolon, which means we also need a semicolon between line number 1, item number 1, and item number 2. So A, no semicolon, and D, no semicolon. Between B and C, where should we place the semicolon? At the end of item number 1. And what's the end of item number 1? This one, growing diverse plant species, comma, both native and non-native. Why? Because this is a non-essential information describing the diverse plant species. So B is your answer. All right, on to our second question. For grammar questions, if it's not a transition question, you necessarily don't have to read the entire passage. Looking at this question and the answer choices, we realize the answer choices are not singular plural combinations such as these. So they're not asking for subject-verb agreement. Instead, this question is asking about the presence of a verb, or we should have something else. So let's take a look. Start reading from, however, nuclear genes are hypothesized to co-evolve with the rate of mitochondrial decline, eliminating mutational erosion. Such a compensatory measure, blank, the organelles decline, unlike enzyme stabilizing accessory proteins, offers an evolutionary explanation of mitochondrial reproduction. For these questions, you need to actively identify the subject and then the verb. Looking at such a compensatory measure, now that's the what? The subject. So we have a subject, and looking through the text, we have some non-essential information separated with a comma. And then over here, down here, we see the word offers. So we've identified the verb. If a sentence has a subject and a verb, we cannot have another verb unless we have conjugation like the word and, or a relative pronoun such as which. And since we don't see that in the text, we must have a modifier or a participle phrase. So a participle phrase then, such as ing or ed, is needed. So among the choices, since we cannot have a verb, which two can we eliminate right away? A and B. Now between C and D, we're going to talk about participle phrases much more in class. But for now, let's plug in C and read the text. Such a compensatory measure counteracted the organelle's decline, offers. So you know right away by listening that that's not correct because we have how many? 2 verbs. That makes D the answer. Such a compensatory measure counteracting the organelle's decline offers an evolutionary explanation of mitochondrial reproduction. On to our third question, we have rhetorical synthesis, as you can see the bullet points. For these questions, I want to emphasize 2 points. 1, is the goal. Number 2 would be the scope. Here the goal would be, in the question stem, you see the word compare. So we need to see either the similarities or the differences. Next, for the scope, that's the part where the question asks where to focus on. So Fodor's hypothesis and Carruthers' hypothesis. So actively look for the bullet point that lists those hypotheses. So F and C's hypothesis. Taking a look, first bullet point, modularity of mind is the notion that the mind is at least partly composed of innate neural structures that perform fast, necessary tasks. Do we have one of their hypotheses here? No, we don't. Moving on. In 1983, cognitive scientist Fodor hypothesized that low-level cognitive systems are modular. That's our first bullet point that we should focus on. Next, in Fodorian modularity, high-level systems are not modular. So let's take a note. Next, we have C. Carruthers. 2003, cognitive scientist Carruthers proposed the MMH. MMH expands modularity to include all cognitive systems. So there we have a distinction. Whether it's low or high, for Carruthers, they are all modular. So that's the kind of note-taking or brain work you want to do before looking at the answer choices. Let's look at answer choice D first. In 2003, Carruthers proposed the massive modularity hypothesis, disagreeing with Fodor's earlier hypothesis that the mind is composed of innate neural structures. Where did this come from? Not here, all the way up here. That's not part of their hypothesis. So D does not include the goal and the scope. C. The hypothesis of Fodor and Carruthers differ in whether they consider low-level cognitive systems, such as perception and language, modular. So do these scientists both consider low-level modular or no? Well, we noted here that Fodor thought low was modular. Now, how about Carruthers? Well, he considered both. So yes, C also considered low modular. So do they differ in this area? No, they don't. So C, we can eliminate. Looking at B, following Fodor's 1983 hypothesis, Carruthers proposed that modularity of mind includes all cognitive systems. So while that might sound okay, here we have the word following. Now, is that a comparison? In the SAT, that's just chronology, not a comparison. So we don't have the goal, so that means we can eliminate B. A, in considering some, but not all, cognitive systems modular, Fodorian modularity is not as expansive in its definition of modularity as MMH is. If we take a look, F, Fodor only included the low. High is not modular. So can we say it's not as expansive? It doesn't include everything? In this case, yes. So that's just a restatement of their hypothesis. We have a comparison. We have not as expansive. So A is your answer.